Hello, everybody. Oh God, I'm so nervous. Hello, hello. Never done this before. How's everyone doing, though? I hope you're having a good day. You guys had a good day? I am looking forward to reading this book, to be fair, because I have not touched it at all. It's a good. I heard it's a good book. It's a favorite book of somebody, of some people I know, and how I obtained it as well. Before we start, though, I do want to give a little shout out to the people working at, where is it? At Other Tales Interactive. Excited to listen to the book. I'm glad to hear. So the people of Other Tales Interactive, they're a small indie developer team. They made like a really nice co-op puzzle game called TikTok: A Tale for Two. They currently have another game in development coming out fairly shortly. They have provided me with this book through a raffle. Hey Yuki, how's it going? So they provided me with this. And I'm looking forward to it. How's your day been, Yuki? This is gonna be such a weird and just... Oh my god. Are you kidding me? Not now. Thought this had no ads. Fucking... The video has ads on it as well. The music, no! No, that's not good. Okay. Well, we'll figure something out if it happens again. An ad bot. Yeah. That would be nice, indeed. Maybe I can... Let me see if I can maybe just disable ads for this stream in that regard. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. We'll see. I'm checking real quick. Oh my god, I don't... I think I could make it like this. Alright. I hope this works. I hope everything is set up right now. I have never done something like this before. Help. Just gotta look some small thing up real quick. Okay. So from a little summary here on Google, this book is about a young boy accidentally brings an evil entity from another reality into his world, and he needs the help of 3 mysterious women to try to get rid of the threat. That's all I know about it. Sadly, since I don't have a camera or anything, I can't really show you. But this copy I have of this book is a fully illustrated copy. Has a lot of drawings and really nice paintings in there. But I'm sure it'll be fine. Thank you, Yuki. Let me just... The book is good. I would love to stay around, but I'm gonna head out. Alright, thank you, though, Nuggy, for stopping by at least. I hope the book is good as well. I have no idea. Knowing it's a favorite of the people that I've gotten it from, I am looking forward to it. And on that note as well, they had a little handwritten letter in there when I got it in the mail. And it says, "Dear reader, it's here right in front of you, the ocean at the end of the lane, a truly magical thing. This is one of the team's favorite books, and we hope it will become one of yours too. We encourage you to see the magic around you. It's in the little things, like in a reflection of a pond, in an experience you encounter, in a game, and in the sound of a forest." Hey Abby, how's it going? Spooky ad too. Ooh. Yeah, I think you guys now should have pre-roll ads, but no other ads. I should have just normal ads on the schedule disabled. So if people come in for the first time, you're not the first one to get that ad. Follow's son earlier had the ad as well when she came in. For not watching that. Well. Spooky for sure. Movie night when? I don't know. Okay. well, who knows? Maybe if we get more people. I like how chill the music is though. I might have to turn it down just slightly. I hope you guys can still hear it and everything's fine. I'm trying to stall here. If you may be able to tell, I'm trying to stall here, guys. I'm so fucking nervous, I don't know. Your favorite nephew is here? Ooh. That sounds like fun. Like, oh god. I don't know what to do. Okay, just gotta quickly put everything back up here. Okay. Well, let's see what we have here in store. So many pages here. Okay. This is what he remembers as he sits by the ocean at the end of the lane. A dead man on the back seat of a car, and warm milk at the farmhouse. An ancient little girl and an old woman who saw the moon being made. A beautiful housekeeper with a monstrous smile. And dark forces woken that were best left undisturbed. They are memories hard to believe, waiting at the edges of things. The recollections of a man who thought he has lost, but is now, perhaps, remembering a time when he was safe. I'll fall asleep. It's all good, Abby. It was only a duck pond out of the back of the farm. It wasn't very big. Letty Hemstock said it was an ocean, but I knew that was silly. She said they'd come here across the ocean from the old country. Her mother said that Letty didn't remember properly, and it was a long time ago. And anyway, the old country hut had sunk. Old Mrs. Hemstock, Letty's grandmother, said they were both wrong, and that the place that sunk wasn't the really old country. She said she could remember the really old country. She said the really old country had blown up. I wore a black suit and a white shirt, a black tie and black shoes, all polished and shiny. Clothes that normally would make me feel uncomfortable. As if I were in a stolen uniform or pretending to be an adult. Today, they gave me comfort of a kind. I was wearing the right clothes for a hard day. I had done my duty in the morning, spoken the words I was meant to speak, and I meant them as I spoke them. And then, when the service was done, I got in my car and I drove. Randomly, without a plan. With an hour or so to kill before I met more people I had not seen for years, and shook more hands and drank too many cups of tea from the best china. I drove along winding Sussex country roads. I drove along winding Sussex country roads I only half remembered, until I found myself headed toward the town center. So I turned randomly down another road and took a left and a right. It was only then that I realized where I was going, where I had been going all along, and I grimaced at my own foolishness. I had been driving towards a house that had not existed for decades. I thought of turning around. Then, as I drove down a street that had once been a flint lane beside a barley field, of turning back and leaving the past undisturbed. But I was curious. The old house, the one I had lived in for 7 years, from when I was 5 until I was 12. That house had been knocked down and was lost for good. The new house, the one my parents had built at the bottom of the garden, between the azalea bushes and the green circle in the grass we called the fairy ring, that had been sold 30 years ago. I slowed the car as I saw the new house. It would always be the new house in my head. I pulled up into the driveway, observing the way they had built out in the mid-70s architecture. I had forgotten that the bricks of the house were chocolate brown. The new people had made my mother's tiny balcony into a 2-story sunroom. I stared at the house, remembering less than I had expected about my teenage years. No good times, no bad times. I'd lived in that place for a while as a teenager. It didn't seem to be any part of who I was now. I backed the car out of their driveway. It was time, I knew, to drive to my sister's bustling, cheerful house, all tidied and stiff for the day. I would talk to people whose existence I had forgotten years before, and they would ask me about my marriage. It failed a decade ago, a relationship that had slowly frayed until eventually, as they always seem to, it broke. And whether I was seeing anyone, I wasn't. I was not even sure that I could, not yet. And they would ask about my children, all grown up. Now, all grown up, they have their own lives. They wish they could be here today. And work, doing fine, thank you, I would say, never knowing how to talk about what I do. If I talk about it, I would not have to do it. I make art. Sometimes I make true art. And sometimes it fills the empty places in my life. Some of them, not all. We would talk about the departed. We would remember the dead. The little country lane of my childhood had become a black tarmac road that served as a buffer between two sprawling housing estates. I drove further down it, away from the town, which was not the way I should have been traveling, and it felt good. The slick black road became narrower, windier, became the single lane track I remembered from my childhood, became packed earth and knobbly, bone-like flints. Soon I was driving slowly, bumpily down a narrow lane with brambles and briar roses on each side. Wherever the edge was not a stand of hazels or a wild hedgerow. It felt like I had driven back in time. That lane was how I remembered. That was how I remembered it when nothing else was. I drove past Caraway Farm. I remembered being just 16 and kissing red-cheeked, fair-haired Callie Anders, who lived there and whose family would soon move to the Shetlands, and I would never kiss her or see her again. Then, nothing but fields on other side of the road for almost a mile, a tangle of meadows. Slowly, the lane became a track. It was reaching its end. I remembered it before I turned the corner, and it saw it, in all of its dilapidated red brick glory, the Hempstocks farmhouse. It took me by surprise, although that was where the lane had always ended. I could have gone no further. I parked the car at the side of the farmyard. I had no plan. I wondered whether, after all these years, there was anyone still living there, or more precisely, if the Hempstocks were still living there. It seemed unlikely, but then, from what little I remembered, they had been unlikely people. The stench of cow muck struck me as I got out of the car, and I walked gingerly across the small yard to the front door. I looked for a doorbell in vain, and then I knocked. The door had not been latched properly, and it swung gently open as I rapped it with my knuckles. I had been here, hadn't I, a long time ago? I was sure I had. Childhood memories are sometimes covered and obscured beneath the things that come later, like childhood toys forgotten at the bottom of a cramped adult closet, but they are never lost for good. I stood in the hallway and called, "Hello? Is anybody there?" I heard nothing. I smelled bread baking and wax furniture polish and old wood. My eyes were slow to adjust to the darkness. I peered into it. I was getting ready to turn and leave when an elderly woman came out of the dim hallway holding a white duster. She wore her gray hair long. I said, "Mrs. Hempstock?" She tripped her head to one side, looked at me. "Yes, I do know you, young man," she said. "I am not a young man. Not any longer. I know you, but things get messy when you get to my age. Who are you exactly? Think I must have been about 7, maybe 8 the last time I was here. She smiled and, you were Letty's friend? From the top of the lane? You gave me milk. It was warm from the cows. And then I realized how many years had gone by, and I said, no, you didn't do that. That must have been your mother who gave me the milk. I'm sorry. As we age, we become our parents. Live long enough and we see faces repeat in time. I remember Mrs. Hemstock, Letty's mother, as a stout woman. This woman was stick-thin and she looked delicate. She looked like her mother, like the woman I had known as old Mrs. Hemstock. Sometimes, when I look in the mirror, I see my father's face, not my own, and I remember the way he would smile at himself in mirrors before he went out. Looking good, he'd say to his reflection approvingly. Looking good. Are you here to see Letty? Mrs. Hemstock asked. Is she here? The idea surprised me. She had gone somewhere, hadn't she? America? The old woman shook her head. I was just about to put the kettle on. Do you fancy a spot of tea? I hesitated. Then I said that, if she didn't mind, I'd like it. If she could point me toward the duck pond first. The duck pond? God. I knew Letty had a funny name for it. I remembered that she called it the sea or something like that. And she called it the sea or something like that. The old woman put the cloth down on the dresser. Can't drink the water from the sea, can you? Too salty. Like drinking life's blood. Do you remember the way? You can get to it around the side of the house. Just follow the path. If you'd asked me an hour before, I would have said no. I did not remember the way. I do not even think I would have remembered Letty Hemstock's name. But standing in that hallway, it was all coming back to me. Memories were waiting at the edges of things, beckoning to me. Had you told me that I was 7 again, I might have half believed you for a moment. Thank you. I walked into the farmyard. I went past the chicken coop, past the old barn, and along the edge of the field, remembering where I was and what was coming next, and exulting in the knowledge. Hazels lined the side of the meadow. I picked a handful of the green nuts, put them in my pocket. The pond is next, I thought. I just have to go around this shed and I'll see it. I saw it and felt oddly proud of myself, as if that one act of memory had blown away some of the cobwebs of the day. The pond was smaller than I remembered. There was a little wooden shed on the far side, and by the path, an ancient, heavy wood and metal bench. The peeling wooden slats had been painted green a few years ago. I sat on the bench and stared at the reflection of the sky in the water. At the scum of duckweed at the edges and a half-dozen lily pads. Every now and again, I tossed a hazelnut into the middle of the pond that Letty Hemstock had called... It wasn't the sea, was it? She would be older than I am now. Letty Hemstock. She was only a handful of years older than I was back then. For all her funny talk, she was 11. What was I? I'm liking this book so far. It's pretty good. It was after the bad birthday party. I knew that. So I would have been 7. I wondered if we had ever fallen into the water. Had I pushed her into the duck pond, that strange girl who lived in the farm at the very bottom of the lane? I remembered her being in the water. Perhaps she had pushed me in too. Where did she go? America? No, Australia. That was it. Somewhere a long way away. And it wasn't the sea. It was the ocean. Letty Hamstock's Ocean. I remembered that. And remembering that, I remembered everything. That was the prologue. That was just like that little bit alone, which was already so really good. That was just a prologue. Alright, chapter 1. Nobody came to my 7th birthday. There was a table laid with jellies and trifles, with a party hat beside each place and a birthday cake with 7 candles on it in the center of the table. The cake had a book drawn on it, and icing. My mother, who had organized the party, told me that the lady at the bakery said that they had never put a book on a birthday cake before, and that mostly for boys it was footballs or spaceships. I was their first book. When it became obvious that nobody was coming, my mother lit the 7 candles on the cake, and I blew them out. I ate a slice of the cake, as did my little sister and one of her friends, both of them attending the party as observers, not participants. Before they fled, giggling to the garden. Party games had been prepared by my mother, but because nobody was there, not even my sister, none of the party games were played, and I unwrapped the newspaper around to pass the parcel gift myself, revealing a blue plastic Batman figure. I was sad that nobody had come to my party, but happy that I had a Batman figure. And there was a birthday present waiting to be read, a box set of the Narnia books, which I took upstairs. I lay on the bed and lost myself in the stories. I liked that. Books were safer than other people anyway. My parents had also given me a Best of Gilbert and Sullivan LP to add to the 2 that I already had. I had loved Gilbert and Sullivan since I was 3, when my father's youngest sister, my aunt, took me to see Iron Lath, a play filled with lords and fairies. I found the existence and nature of the fairies easier to understand than that of the lords. My aunt had died soon after of pneumonia in the hospital. That evening, when my father arrived home from work, he brought a cardboard box with him. In the cardboard box was a soft-haired black kitten of uncertain gender, which I immediately named Fluffy, and which I loved utterly and wholeheartedly. Fluffy slept on my bed at night. I talked to it, sometimes when my little sister was not around, half expecting it to answer in a human tongue. It never did. I did not mind. The kitten was affectionate and interested and a good companion for someone whose 7th birthday party had consisted of a table with iced biscuits and a blancmange of cake and 15 empty folding chairs. I do not remember ever asking any of the other children in my class at school why they had not come to my party. I did not seek to ask them. They were not my friends after all. They were just people I went to school with. I made friends slowly when I made them. I had books, and now I had my kitten. We would be like Dick Whittington and his cat. I knew, or if Fluffy proved particularly intelligent, he would be the miller's son. He would be the miller's son and Puss in Boots. The kitten slept on my pillow, and it even waited for me to come home from school, sitting on the driveway in front of my house by the fence, until a month later it was run over by the taxi that brought the Opal Miner to stay. I was not there when it happened. I got home from school that day, and my kitten was not waiting to meet me. In the kitchen was a tall, rangy man with tanned skin and a checkered shirt. He was drinking coffee at the kitchen table. I could smell it. In those days, all coffee was instant coffee. A bitter, dark brown powder that came out of a jar. I'm afraid I had a little accident arriving here, he told me cheerfully. But not to worry. His accent was clipped, unfamiliar. It was the first South African accent I had heard. He too had a cardboard box on the table in front of him. The black kitten. Was he yours? He asked. It's called Fluffy, I said. Yeah, like I said, accident coming here. Not to worry, disposed of the corpse. Don't have to trouble yourself. Dealt with that matter. Open the box. What? He pointed to the box. Open it, he said. The opal miner was a tall man. He wore jeans and checkered shirts every time I saw him, except the last. He had a thick chain of pale gold around his neck. Then, that was gone the last time I saw him too. I did not want to open his box. I wanted to go off on my own. I wanted to cry for my kitten, but I could not do that if anyone else was there and watching me. I wanted to mourn. I wanted to bury my friend at the bottom of the garden, past the green grass fairy ring, into a rhododendron bush cave, back past the heap of grass cuttings, where nobody ever went but me. The box moved. I bought it for you, said the man. Always pay my debts. I reached out, lifted the top flap of the box, wondering if this was a joke, if my kitten would be in there. Instead, a ginger face stared up at me truculently. The opal miner took the cat out of the box. He was a huge, ginger-striped tomcat, missing half an ear. He glared at me angrily. This cat had not liked being put in a box. He was not used to boxes. I reached out to stroke his head, feeling unfaithful to the memory of my kitten, but he pulled back so I could not touch him. And he hissed at me, then stalked off to a far corner of the room, where he sat and looked and hated. There you go, cat for a cat, said the opal miner. And he ruffled my hair with his leathery hand. Then he went out into the hall, leaving me in the kitchen with the cat that was not my kitten. The man put his head back through the door. It's called Monster, he said. It felt like a bad joke. I propped open the kitchen door so the cat could get out. Then I went up to my bedroom and lay on my bed and cried for dead Fluffy. When my parents got home that evening, I do not think my kitten wasn't even mentioned. Monster lived with us for a week or more. I put cat food in a bowl for him in the morning and again at night, as I had for my kitten. Okay, I have to find something else for music. Otherwise, this is getting a bit annoying, but yeah. As I had for my kitten. He would sit by the back door until I or someone else let him out. What was that now? Okay. We saw him in the garden, slipping from bush to bush, or in trees, or in the undergrowth. We could trace his movements by the dead blue tits and thrushes we would find in the garden, but we saw him rarely. I missed Fluffy. I knew you could not simply replace something alive, but I dared not grumble to my parents about it. They have been baffled at my upset. After all, if my kitten had been killed, it had also been replaced. The damage had been made up. It all came back. And even as it came back, I knew it would not be for long. All things I remembered, sitting on the green bench beside the little pond that little Letty Hemstock had once convinced me was an ocean. Chapter 2. I was not happy as a child, although from time to time I was content. I lived in books more than I lived anywhere else. Our house was large, many-roomed, which was good when they bought it, and my father had money. Not good later. My parents called me into their bedroom one afternoon very formally. I thought I must have done something wrong, and was there for a telling off, but no. They told me only that they were no longer affluent, that we would all need to make sacrifices, and that I and that what I would be sacrificing was my bedroom, the little room at the top of the stairs. I was sad. My bedroom had a tiny yellow wash basin they had put in for me, just my size. The room was above the kitchen and immediately up the stairs from the television room, so at night I could hear the comforting buzz of adult conversation up the stairs. Through my half-open door, and I did not feel alone. Also, in my bedroom, nobody minded if I kept the hall door half open, allowing in enough light that I was not scared of the dark. And just as important, allowing me to read secretly after my bedtime in the dim hallway light if I needed to. I always needed to. Exiled to my little sister's huge bedroom, I was not heartbroken. There were already 3 beds in there, and I took the bed by the window. I loved that I could climb out of that bedroom window onto the long brick balcony, that I could sleep with the window open and feel the wind and the rain on my face. But we argued, my sister and I, argued about everything. She liked to sleep with the door to the hall closed, and the immediate arguments about whether the bedroom door should be open or shut were summarily resolved by my mother writing a chart that hung on the back of the door, showing that alternate nights were mine or my sister's. Each night I was content or I was terrified, depending on whether the door was open or closed. My former bedroom at the top of the stairs was let out, and a variety of people passed through it. I viewed them all with suspicion. They were sleeping in my bedroom, using my little basin, my little yellow basin that was just the right size for me. There had been a fat Austrian lady who told us she could leave her head and walk around the ceiling, an architectural student from New Zealand, an American couple whom my mother scandalized made leave when she discovered they were not actually married, and now there was the opal miner. He was a South African, although he had made his money mining for opals in Australia. He gave my sister and me an opal each, a rough black rock with green, blue-red fire in it. My sister liked him for this, and treasured her opal stone. I could not forgive him for the death of my kitten. It was the first day of the spring holidays, 3 weeks of no school. I woke early, thrilled by the prospect of endless days to fill however I wished. I would read, I would explore. I pulled on my shorts, my t-shirt, my sandals. I went downstairs to the kitchen. My father was cooking while my mother slept in. He was wearing a dressing gown over his pajamas. He always cooked breakfast on Saturdays. I said, "Dad, where's my comic?" He normally bought me a copy of Smash before he drove home from work on Fridays, and I would read it on Saturday mornings. In the back of the car. "You want toast?" "Yes," I said, "but not burnt." My father did not like toasters. He toasted bread under the grill, and usually he burnt it. I went outside into the drive. I looked around. I went back into the house, pushed the kitchen door, went in. I liked the kitchen door. It swung both ways, in and out, so a servant 60 years ago would be able to walk in and out of their arms laden with dishes empty or full. "Dad, where's the car?" In the drive." "No, it isn't." "What?" The telephone rang and my father went out into the hall, where the phone was, to answer it. I heard him talking to someone. The toast began to smoke under the grill. I got up on a chair and turned the grill off. "That was the police," my father said. "Someone's reported seeing our car abandoned at the bottom of the lane." I said I hadn't even reported it stolen yet, right? We can head down now, meet them there. Toast." He pulled the pan out from beneath the grill. The toast was smoking and blackened on one side. "Is my comic there? Or did they steal it?" "I don't know. The police didn't mention your comic. My father put peanut butter on the burnt side of each piece of toast, replaced his dressing gown with a coat worn over his pajamas, put on a pair of shoes, and we walked down the lane together. He munched his toast as we walked. I held my toast and did not eat it. We had walked for perhaps 5 minutes down the narrow lane, which ran through fields on each side, when a police car came up behind us. It slowed, and the driver greeted my father by name. Actually, I'm really liking this book already. Give me a second. It's really nice. I have to adjust to my chair here real quick. I like how descriptive the author is. Hey Lily, I hope you're doing good. Hope you're feeling better. I really like how like descriptive the author is and like in his environment and everything. I hid my piece of burnt toast behind my back while my father talked to the policeman. I wished my family would buy normal sliced white bread, the kind that went into toasters like every other family I knew. Yeah, the fluffy pot was kind of sad. My father had found a local baker's shop where they made thick loaves of heavy brown bread, and he insisted on buying them. He said they tasted better, which was, to my mind, nonsense. Proper bread was white and pre-sliced and tasted like almost nothing. That was the point. Okay, quick note, as a German, I do not agree with that statement. We love our bread. Bread is good. It's not just white pre-sliced and tastes like nothing. The driver of the police car got out, opened the passenger door, and told me to get in. My father rode up front beside the driver. The police car went slowly down the lane. The whole lane was unpaved back then, just wide enough for one car at a time. A puddly, precipitous, bumpy way with flints sticking up from it. The whole thing rutted by farm equipment and rain and time. These kids, said the policeman, they think it's funny. Steal a car, drive it around, abandon it. They'll be locals. Hello, Enzo. How are you doing? I'm just glad it was found so fast, said my father. Past Caraway Farm, where a small girl with hair so blonde it was almost white and red. Red cheeks stared at us as we went past. I held my piece of burnt toast on my lap. Funny, them leaving it down here, though, said the policeman. Unfortunate timing. I did post the time. Of course, I'm gonna hold up to that time. Funny them leaving it down here, though, said the policeman, because it's a long walk back to anyone from here. We passed a bend in the lane and saw the white Mini over on the side. I think we have like a 6-hour difference, Enzo. We passed a bend in the lane and saw the white Mini over on the side, in front of a gate leading into a field, tires sunk deep in the brown mud. We drove past it, parked on the grass verge. The policeman let me out, and the three of us walked over to the Mini. While the policeman told my dad about crime in this area and why it was obviously the local kids who had done it. Then my dad was opening the passenger side door with a spare key. He said, someone's left something on the back seat. He reached back and pulled away the blue blanket that covered the thing in the back seat, even as the policeman was telling him that he shouldn't do that. And I was staring at the back seat because that was where my comic was. So I saw it. It wasn't it. The thing I was looking at, not a him. Although I was an imaginative child prone to nightmares, I had persuaded my parents to take me to Madame Tussauds waxworks in London. To take me when I was 6, because I wanted to visit the Chamber of Horrors, expecting the movie monster Chambers of Horrors I'd read about in my comics. I had wanted to thrill the waxworks of Dracula and Frankenstein's monster and the Wolfman. Instead, I was walked through a seemingly endless sequence of dioramas of unremarkable, glum-looking men and women who had murdered people, usually lodgers, and members of their own family, and who were then murdered in their turn. By hanging, by the electric chair, and in gas chambers. Most of them were depicted with their victims in awkward social situations, seated around a dinner table, perhaps as their poisoned family members expired. The plagues that explained who they were, the plaques that explained who they were also told me that the majority of them had murdered their families and sold the bodies to anatomy. It was then that the word anatomy garnered its own edge of horror for me. I did not know what anatomy was. I only knew that anatomy made people kill their children. The only thing that it kept me running screaming from the Chamber of Horrors as I was led around it was that none of the waxworks had looked fully convincing. They could not truly look dead because they did not ever look alive. The thing in the back seat that had been covered by the blue blanket, I knew that blanket. It was the one that had been in my old bedroom on the shelf for when it got cold. Was not convincing either. It looked a little like the Opal Miner, but it was dressed in a black suit with a white ruffled shirt and a black bow tie. Its hair was slicked back and artificially shiny. Its eyes were staring. Its lips were bluish, but its skin was very red. It looked like a parody of health. There was no gold chain around its neck. I could see, underneath it, crumpled and bent, my copy of Smash, with Batman looking just as he did on the television on the cover. I don't remember who said what then. Just they made me stand away from the Mini. I crossed the road, and I stood there on my own, while the policeman talked to my father and wrote things down in a notebook. I stared at the Mini. A length of green garden hose ran from the exhaust pipe up to the driver's window. There was thick brown mud all over the exhaust, holding the hose pipe in place. Nobody was watching me. I took a bite of my toast. It was burnt and cold. At home, my father ate all of the most burnt pieces of toast. Yum, he said, and charcoal good for you, and burnt toast my favorite, and he'd eat it all up. When I was much older, he confessed to me that he had never liked burnt toast. He only had he never liked burnt toast, had only eaten it to prevent it from going to waste. And for a fraction of a moment, my entire childhood felt like a lie. It was if one of the pillars of belief that my world had been built upon had crumbled into dry sand. The policeman spoke into a radio in the front of his car. Then he crossed the road and came over to me. Sorry about this, Sonny, he said. There's going to be a few more cars coming down in this road in a minute. We should find you somewhere to wait, that you won't be in the way. Would you like to sit in the back of my car again? I shook my head. I didn't want to sit there again. Somebody, a girl, said, "He can come back with me to the farmhouse. It's no trouble." She was much older than me, at least 11. Her hair was worn relatively short for a girl, and her nose was snub. She was freckled. She wore a red skirt. Girls didn't wear jeans much back then, not in those parts. She had a soft Sussex accent. and sharp gray-blue eyes. The girl went with the policeman over to my father, and she got permission to take me away, and then I was walking down the lane with her. I said, "There's a dead man in our car." "That's why he came down here," she told me. "The end of the road. Nobody's going to find him and stop him around here. 3 o'clock in the morning, and the mud there is wet and easy to mold." "You think he killed himself?" "Yes. You like milk? Cran's milking Bessie now." I said, "You mean real milk from a cow?" And then felt foolish, but she nodded reassuringly. I thought about this. I had never had milk that didn't come from a bottle. I think I'd like that. We stopped at a small barn where an old woman, much older than my parents, with gray long hair like cobwebs and a thin face, was standing beside a cow. Long black tubes were attached to each of the cow's teats. "We used to milk them by hand," she told me, "but this is easier." She showed me how the milk went from the cow down the black tubes and into the machine, through a cooler and into huge metal churns. The churns were left on a heavy wooden platform outside the barn, where they would be collected each day by a lorry. The old lady gave me a cup of creamy milk from Bessie the cow, the fresh milk before it had gone through the cooler. Nothing I had drunk had ever tasted like that before. Rich and warm and perfectly happy in my mouth. I remembered that milk after I had forgotten everything else. "There's more of them up the lane," said the old woman suddenly. "All sorts coming down with lights flashing and all. Such a palaver. You should get the boy into the kitchen. He's hungry, and a cup of milk won't do a growing boy." The girl said, "Have you eaten?" "Just a piece of toast. It was burnt." She said, "My name's Letty. Letty Hemstock. This is Hemstock Farm. Come on." She took me in through the front door and into their enormous kitchen. One second. Sat me down at a huge wooden table, so stained and patterned that it looked as if faces were staring up at me from the old wood. "We have breakfast here early," she said. "Milking starts at first light, but there's porridge in the saucepan and jam to put in it." She gave me a china bowl filled with warm porridge from the stovetop, with a lump of homemade blackberry jam, my favorite, in the middle of the porridge, and then she poured cream on it. I swished it around with my spoon before I ate it, swirling it into a purple mess, and was as happy as I have ever been about anything. It tasted perfect. A stocky woman came in. Her red-brown hair was streaked with gray and cut short. She had apple cheeks, a dark green skirt that went to her knees, and Wellington boots. She said, "This must be the boy from the top of the lane. Such a business going on with that car. There'll be 5 of them needing a tea soon." Letty filled a huge copper kettle from the tap. She lit a gas hob with a match and put the kettle on the flame. Then she took down 5 chipped mugs from a cupboard and hesitated, looking at the woman. The woman said, "You're right. 6. The doctor will be here too." Then the woman pursed her lips and made a sound. "They've missed a note," she said. "He wrote it so carefully too, folded it up and put it in his breast pocket, and they haven't looked there yet." Okay, 1 second. I gotta take a little sip of water. But yeah, this book is really good. We haven't read much of it yet. We're like at page 30 or something, because half the pages also are illustrations, so they take off like a whole ass page sometimes. But yeah, it's really good. Yeah, sounds very interesting. It starts to have a bit more of a mysterious tone to it now with the dead opal miner, because we don't know what happened to him yet. So I'm looking forward to it. This is really cool. I did not expect to enjoy the book as much as I do right now, but to be fair, I'm usually not that big of a reader, but I'm enjoying this. What does it say? Asked Letty. Read it yourself, said the woman. I thought she was Letty's mother. She seemed like she was somebody's mother. Then she said, it says that he took all the money that his friends had given him to smuggle out of South Africa and bank for them in England, along with all the money he had made over the years mining for opals. And he went to the casino in Brighton to gamble, but he only meant to gamble with his own money. And then he only meant to dip into the money his friends had given him until he had made back the money he had lost. And then he didn't have anything, said the woman, and all was dark. That's not what he wrote, though, said Letty, squinting her eyes. What he wrote was, to all my friends, I'm so sorry, it was not like I meant to, and hope you can find it in your hearts to forgive me, for I cannot forgive myself. Same thing, said the older woman. She turned to me. I'm Letty's ma, she said. You'll have met my mother already in the milking shed. I'm Mrs. Hemstock, but she was Mrs. Hemstock before me. So she's old Mrs. Hemstock. This is Hemstock Farm. It's the oldest farm hereabouts. It's in the Domesday Book. I wondered why they were all called Hemstock, those women, but I did not ask, any more than I dared to ask how they knew about the suicide note or what the opal miner had thought as he died. They were perfectly matter of fact about it. Letty said, I nudged him to look in the breast pocket. He'll think he thought of it himself. That's a good girl, said Mrs. Hemstock. They'll be in here when the kettle boils to ask if I've seen anything unusual and to have their tea. Why don't you take the boy down to the pond? It's not a pond, said Letty. It's my ocean. She turned to me and said, come on. She led me out of the house the way we had come. The day was still gray. We walked around the house, down the cow path. Is it a real ocean? I asked. Oh, yes, she said. We came on it suddenly. A wooden shed, an old bench, and between them, a duck pond, dark water spotted with duckweed and lily pads. There was a dead fish, silver as a coin, floating on its side on the surface. That's not good, said Letty. I thought you said it was an ocean, I told her. It's just a pond, really. It is an ocean, she said. We came across it when I was just a baby from the old country. Letty went into the shed and came out with a long bamboo pole with what looked like a shrimping net on the end. She leaned over, carefully pushed the net beneath the dead fish, and she pulled it out. But Hemstock Farm is in the Domesday Book. I said, your mom said so, and that was William the Conqueror. Yes, said Lady Hemstock. She took the dead fish out of the net and examined it. It was still soft, not stiff, and it flopped in her hand. I had never seen so many colors. It was silver, yes, but beneath the silver was blue and green and purple, and each scale was tipped with black. What kind of fish is it? I asked. This is very odd, she said. I mean, mostly fish in this ocean don't die anyway. She produced a horn-handled pocket knife. although I could not have told you from where. And she pushed it into the stomach of the fish and sliced along toward the tail. This is what killed her, said Letty. She took something from inside the fish. Then she put it, still greasy from the fish guts, into my hand. I bent down, dipped it into the water, rubbed my fingers across it to clean it off, and I stared at it. Queen Victoria's face stared back at me. 6 pence? I said. The fish ate a 6 pence? It's not good, is it? Said Letty Hemstock. There was a little sunshine now. It showed the freckles that clustered across her cheeks and nose, and where the sunlight touched her hair, it was coppery red. And then she said, Your father's wondering where you are. Time to be getting back. I tried to give her the little silver 6 pence, but she shook her head. You keep it, she said. You can buy chocolates or sherbet lemons. I don't think I can, I said. It's too small. I don't know if shops will take 6 pence like these nowadays. Then put it in a piggy bank, she said. It might bring you luck. She said this doubtfully, as if she were uncertain what kind of luck it would bring. The policeman and my father and 2 men in brown suits and ties were standing in the farmhouse kitchen. One of the men told me he was a policeman, but he wasn't wearing a uniform, which I thought was disappointing. If I were a policeman, I would wear my uniform wherever I could. The other man with a suit and tie I recognized as Dr. Smithson, our family doctor. They were finishing their tea. Okay. How do these women all know exactly what's going on without any clues? Because, like, the little girl knew, like, oh, we have to go back. Your father is worrying. How? We were at the pond, nowhere near close to the house. The same with the suicide note and all of that. Like, what the fuck? My father thanked Mrs. Hemstock and Letty for taking care of me. They said I was no trouble at all, and that I could come again. The policeman who had driven us down to the Mini now drove us back to our house and dropped us off at the end of the drive. Probably best if you don't talk about this to your sister, said my father. I didn't want to talk about it to anybody. I had found a special place and made a new friend. And lost my comic. And I was holding an old-fashioned silver 6 pence tightly in my hand. I said, what makes the ocean different to the sea? Bigger, said my father. An ocean is much bigger than the sea. Why? No, said my father. Ponds are pond-sized, lakes are lake-sized, seas are seas, and oceans are oceans. Atlantic, Pacific, Indian, Arctic. I think that's all of the oceans there are. My father went up to his bedroom to talk to my mom and to be on the phone up there. I dropped the silver 6 pence into my piggy bank. It was the kind of china piggy bank from which nothing could be removed. One day, when it could hold no more coins, I would be allowed to break it, but it was far from full. Oh, that was chapter 2. I am really digging how descriptive the author is. With the environment, with the characters. Just everything. Even the fish. Like, even the details on the fish. The small things like that really just, like, breathes life to the story. And I enjoy that. The last, like, novel series I was reading that was also in English, the author as well had a really, really great way of just describing the details in the scene. And I really appreciate that. All right. Chapter 3. I never saw the white Mini again. 2 days later, on Monday, my father took delivery of a black Rover with cracked red leather seats. It was a bigger car than the Mini had been, but not as comfortable. The smell of old cigars permeated the leather upholstery, and long drives in the back of the Rover always left us feeling carsick. The black Rover was not the only thing to arrive on Monday morning. I also received a letter. I was 7 years old, and I never got letters. I got cards on my birthday from my grandparents, and from Ellen Henderson, my mother's friend whom I did not know. On my birthday, Ellen Henderson, who lived in a caravan, would send me a handkerchief. I did not get letters. Even so, I would check the post every day to see if there was anything for me. And that morning, there was. I opened it, did not understand what I was looking at, and took it to my mother. "You've won the premium bonds," she said. "What does that mean? When you were born, when all of our grandchildren were born, your grandma bought you a premium bond. And when the number gets chosen, you can win thousands of pounds." Did I win thousands of pounds? No. She looked at the slip of paper. "You won 25 pounds. I was sad not to have won thousands of pounds. I already knew what I would buy with it. I would buy a place to go and be alone, like a bat cave with a hidden entrance. But I was delighted to be in possession of a fortune beyond my previous imaginations. 25 pounds. I could buy 4 little blackjack or fruit salad sweets for a penny. They were a farthing each. Although there were no more farthings. 25 pounds at 240 pennies to the pound, and 4 sweets to the penny was more sweets than I could easily imagine. "I'll put it in your post office account," said my mother, crushing my dreams. I did not have any more sweets than I had that morning. Even so, I was rich. 13 pounds 11 shillings richer than I had been moments before. I had never won anything, ever. I made her show me the piece of paper with my name on it again, before she put it into her handbag. That was Monday morning. In the afternoon, the ancient Mr. Wallery, who came in on Monday and Thursday afternoons to do some gardening. Mrs. Wally was his equally ancient wife, who would come in on Wednesday afternoons and clean, was digging in the vegetable garden and dug up a bottle filled with pennies and half pennies and 3 pennies, and 3 penny bits, and even farthings. None of the coins is dated later than 1937. And I spent the afternoon polishing them with brown sauce and vinegar to make them shine. My mother put the bottle of old coins on the mantelpiece of the dining room and said that she expected a coin collector might pay several pounds for them. I went to bed that night happy and excited. I was rich. Buried treasure had been discovered. The world was a good place. I don't remember how the dream started, but that's the way of dreams, isn't it? I know that I was in school and having a bad day, hiding from the kinds of kids who hit me and called me names, but they found me anyway, deep in the rhododendron thicket behind the school. And I knew it must be a dream, but in a dream I didn't know it was real, and it was true. Because my grandfather was with them, and his friends, old men with gray skin and hacking coughs. They held sharp pencils, the kind that drew blood when you were jabbed with them. I ran from them, but they were faster than I was. The old men, not the big boys. and the big boys, and in the boys' toilets where I had hidden in a cubicle. They caught up with me. They held me down, forced my mouth wide open. My grandfather, but it was not my grandfather. It was really a waxwork of my grandfather, intent on selling me to anatomy, held something sharp and glittering, and he began pushing it into my mouth with his stubby fingers. It was hard and sharp and familiar, and it made me gag and choke. My mouth filled with a metallic taste. They were looking at me with mean, triumphant eyes, all the people in the boys' toilets, and I tried not to choke on the thing in my throat, determined not to give them that satisfaction. I woke and I was choking. I could not breathe. There was something in my throat, hard and sharp, and stopping me from breathing or from crying out. I began to cough as I woke, tears streaming down my cheeks, nose running. I pushed my fingers as deeply as I could into my mouth, desperate and panicked and determined. I felt the edge of something hard with the tip of my forefinger. I put the middle finger on the other side of it, choking myself, clamping the thing between them. And I pulled whatever it was out of my throat. I gasped for air, and then I half vomited onto my bed sheets, threw up a clear drool flecked with blood from where the thing had cut my throat as I had pulled it out. I did not look at the thing. It was tight in my hand, slimy with my saliva and my phlegm. Did not want to look at it. I did not want it to exist. The bridge between my dream and the waking world. I ran down the hallway to the bathroom at the far end of the house. I washed my mouth out, drank directly from the cold tap, sped red into the white sink. Only when I'd done that did I sit on the side of the white bathtub and open my hand. I was scared. But what was in my hand? What had been in my throat wasn't scary. It was a coin, a silver shilling. I went back to the bedroom. I dressed myself, cleaned the vomit from my sheets as best as I could with a damp face flannel. I hoped that the sheets would dry before I had to sleep in the bed that night. Then I went downstairs. I wanted to tell someone about the shilling, but I did not know who to tell. I knew enough about adults to know that if I did tell them what had happened, I would not be believed. Adults rarely seemed to believe me when I told the truth anyway. Why would they believe me about something so unlikely? My sister was playing in the back garden with some of her friends. She ran over to me angrily when she saw me. She said, "I hate you. I'm telling mommy and daddy when they come home." What? You know what? You know, she said. I know it was you. What was me? Throwing coins at me? At all of us? From the bushes? That was just nasty. But I didn't. It hurt. She went back to her friends, and they all glared at me. My throat felt painful and ragged. I walked down the drive. I don't know where I was thinking of going. I just didn't want to be there any longer. Letty Hemstock was standing at the bottom of the drive beneath the chestnut trees. She looked as if she had been waiting for 100 years and could wait for another 100. She wore a white dress, but the light coming through the chestnut's young spring leaves stained it green. I said, "Hello." She said, "You were having bad dreams, weren't you?" I took the shilling out of my pocket and showed it to her. I was choking on it, I told her, when I woke up. But I don't know how it got into my mouth. If someone had put it into my mouth, I would have woken up. It was just in there when I woke. "Yes," she said. "My sister says I threw coins at them from the bushes, but I didn't." "No," she agreed. You didn't." I said, Letty, what's happening? Oh, she said as if it was obvious. Someone's just trying to give people money, that's all. But it's doing it very badly, and it's stirring things up around here that should be asleep, and that's not good. Is it something to do with the man who died? Something to do with him, yes. Is he doing this? She shook her head. Then she said, "Have you had breakfast?" And I shook my head. "Well then," she said, "come on." We walked down the lane together. There were a few houses down the lane, and here and there back then, and she pointed to them as we went past. "In that house," said Letty Hemstock, "a man dreamed of being sold and of being turned into money. Now he started seeing things in mirrors." "What kind of things?" "Himself, but with fingers poking out of his eye sockets and things coming out of his mouth like crab claws." Although I thought about people with crab legs coming out of their mouths in mirrors. Why did I find a shilling in my throat? He wanted people to have money. The opal miner who died in the car? Yes, sort of, not exactly. He started this all off, like someone lighting a fuse on a firework. His death lit the touch paper. The thing that's exploding right now, that isn't him. That's somebody else. Something else. She rubbed her freckled nose with a grubby hand. "A lady's gone mad in that house," she told me, and it would not have occurred to me to doubt her. "She has money in a mattress. Now she won't get out of bed in case someone takes it from her." "How do you know?" She shrugged. "Once you've been around for a bit, you get to know stuff." I kicked a stone. "By a bit, do you mean a really long time?" And she just nodded. "How old are you really?" I asked. She responded, 11. I thought for a while. Then I asked, "How long have you been 11 for?" She smiled at me. We walked past Caraway Farm. The farmers, whom one day I would come to know as Kelly Anders' parents, were standing in the farmyard shouting at each other. They stopped when they saw us. When we rounded a bend in the lane and were out of sight, Letty said, "These poor people." "Why are they poor people?" "Because they've been having money problems. And this morning, he had a dream where she was doing bad things to earn money. So he looked her in her handbag and found lots of folded up 10-shilling notes. She says she doesn't know where they come from. And he doesn't believe her. He doesn't know what to believe." "All the fighting and the dreams? It's about money, isn't it?" "I'm not sure," said Letty, and she seemed so grown up then that I was almost scared of her. "Whatever is happening," she said eventually, "can all be sorted out." She saw the expression on my face then, worried, scared even, and she said, "After pancakes." Letty cooked us pancakes on a big metal griddle on the kitchen stove. They were paper thin, and as each pancake was done, Letty would squeeze lemon on it and plop a blob of plum jam onto the center and roll it tightly, like a cigar. When they were enough, we sat at the kitchen table and wolfed them down. There was a hearth in that kitchen, and there was ashes still smoldering in the hearth from the night before. That kitchen was a friendly place, I thought. I said to Letty, "I'm scared." She smiled at me. "I'll make sure you're safe. I promise. I'm not scared." I was still scared, but not as much. It's just scary. "I said I promise," said Letty Hemstock. "I won't let you be hurt." Hurt? Right. Hurt? Said a high, cracked voice. Who's hurt? What's been hurt? Why would anybody be hurt? It was old Mrs. Hemstock, her apron held between her hands, and in the hollow of the apron so many daffodils that the light reflected up from them transformed her face to gold, and the kitchen seemed bathed in yellow light. Lady said, "Something's causing trouble. It's giving people money, in their dreams and in real life." She showed the old lady my shilling. "My friend found himself choking on the shilling when he woke up in this morning." Old Mrs. Hemstock put her apron onto the kitchen table, rapidly moved the daffodils off the cloth and onto the wood. Then she took the shilling from Letty. She squinted at it, sniffed it, rubbed at it, listened to it, or put it to her ear at any rate. Thank you for the lurk, Scythe. I appreciate it. Then touched it with the tip of her purple tongue. "It's new," she said. She said at last. "It says 1912 on it, but it didn't exist yesterday." Letty said, "I knew there was something funny about it." I looked up at old Mrs. Hemstock. How do you know?" "Good question, Livy. It's electron decay, mostly. You have to look at things closely to see the electrons. They're the little dinky ones that look like tiny smiles. The neurons are the gray ones that look like frowns. The electrons were all a bit too smiley for 1912. So then I checked the sides of the letters and the old king's head. And everything was a tad too crisp and sharp. Even where they were worn, it was as if they'd been made to be worn." Okay, now it's getting kind of weird. Oh god. "You must have very good eyesight," I told her. I was impressed. She gave me back the coin. "Not as good as it once was, but then when you get to be my age, your eyesight won't be as sharp as it once was." "Neither." And she left out a guffaw as she had said something very funny. "How old is that?" Lady looked at me, and I was worried that I'd said something rude. Sometimes adults don't like to be asked about their age, and sometimes they did. In my experience, old people did. They were proud of their ages. Mrs. Wallery was 77, and Mr. Wallery was 89. And they liked telling us how old they were. Old Mrs. Hemstock went over to a cupboard and took out several colorful vases. "Old enough," she said. "I remember when the moon was made." Hasn't there always been a moon? "Bless you, not in the slightest. I remember the day the moon came. We looked up in the sky. It was all dirty brown and sooty gray here then, not green and blue." What the fuck? Okay. She half-filled each of the vases at the sink. Then she took a pair of blackened kitchen scissors and snipped off the bottom half of each of the stem of each of the daffodils. I said, "Are you sure it's not that man's ghost doing this? Are you sure we aren't being haunted?" They both laughed then, the girl and the old woman, and I felt stupid and said, "Sorry." "Ghosts can't make things," said Lottie. "They aren't even good at moving things." Old Mrs. Hemstock said, "Go and get your mother. She's doing laundry." Then to me, "You shall help me with the daffs." I helped her put the flowers into the vases, and she asked my opinion on where to put the vases in the kitchen. We placed them where I suggested, and I felt wonderfully important. This is really good. Okay, we have basically a full-on double page with just a big illustration of him helping out in the kitchen, and a very, very little amount of text saying, the daffodils set like patches of sunlight, making that dark wooden kitchen even more cheerful. The floor was red flagstone. The walls were whitewashed. The old woman gave me a lump of honeycomb from the hemstock's own beehive on a chipped saucer and poured a little cream over it from a jug. I ate it with a spoon, chewing the wax-like gum. Oh my god. Chewing the wax-like gum, letting the honey flow into my mouth. Sweet and sticky with an aftertaste of wild flowers. I was scraping the last of the cream and honey from the saucer when Letty and her mother came into the kitchen. Mrs. Hemstock still had big Wellington boots on, and she strode in as she were in an enormous hurry. "Mother," she said, "giving the boy honey, you'll rot his teeth." Old Mrs. Hemstock shrugged. "I'll have a word with the wrigglers in his mouth," she said. "Get them to leave his teeth alone." "You can't just boss bacteria around like that," said the younger Mrs. Hemstock. "They don't like it." "Stuff and silliness," said the old lady. "You leave wigglers alone, and they'll be carrying on like anything. Show them who's boss, and they can't do enough for you. You've tasted my cheese." She turned to me. "I've won medals for my cheese. Medals. Back in the old king's day, there were those who'd ride for a week to buy a round of my cheese. They said that the king himself had it with his bread and his boys, Prince Dickon and Prince Joffrey, and even little Prince John. They swore it was the finest cheese they had ever tasted." "Gran," said Letty, and the old lady stopped mid-flow. Letty's mother then said, "You'll be needing a hazel wand." And she added somewhat doubtfully, "I suppose you could take the lad. It's his coin, and it'll be easier to carry if he's with you. Something she made." She? Said Letty. She was holding her horn-handled penknife with the blade closed. "Tastes like a she," said Letty's mother. "I might be wrong. Mind." "Don't take the boy," said old Mrs. Hemstock. "Asking for trouble, that is." I was disappointed. "We'll be fine," said Lottie. "I'll take care of him. Him and me. It'll be an adventure. And he'll be company. Please, Gran." I looked up at old Mrs. Hemstock with hope on my face and waited. "Don't say I didn't warn you if all goes wobbly," said old Mrs. Hemstock. "Thank you, Gran. I won't, and I'll be careful." Old Mrs. Hemstock sniffed. "Now don't do anything stupid. Approach it with care. Bind it, close its waist, send it back to sleep." "I know," said Letty. "I know all that. Honestly, we'll be fine." That's what she said, but we weren't. Chapter 4. Letty led me to a hazel thicket beside the old road. The hazel catkins were hanging heavy in the spring. I broke off a branch. Then, with her knife, as she had done it 10,000 times before, she stripped it of bark and cut it again, and then so that now it resembled a Y. She put the knife away. I did not see where it went, and held the two ends of the Y in her hands. "I'm not dowsing," she told me. "Just using it as a guide. Looking for a blue bottle. I think to start with, or something purpley blue and shiny." I looked around with her. I can't see one. He'll be here, she assured me. I gazed around, taking in the grass. A reddish-brown chicken pecking at the side of the driveway. Some rusty farm machinery. The wooden trestle table beside the road, and the 6 empty metal milk churns that sat upon it. I saw the Hemstock's red brick farmhouse. Crouched and comfortable like an animal at rest, I saw the spring flowers. The omnipresent white and yellow daisies, the golden dandelions, and do you like buttercups? And late in the season, a lone blue shell in the shadows beneath the milk churn table, still glistening with dew. That? I asked. You've got sharp eyes, she said approvingly. We walked together to the bluebell. Letty closed her eyes when we reached it. She moved her body back and forth, the hazel wand extended as if she were in the central point on a clock or a compass. Her wand, the hands orienting toward a midnight or an east that I could not perceive. Black, she said suddenly, as if she were describing something from a dream. And soft. We walked away from the blue shell, along the lane that I imagined sometimes must have been a Roman road. We were 100 yards up the lane, near where the Mini had been parked, when she spotted it, a scrap of black cloth caught in the barbed wire of the fence. Letty approached it. Again, the outstretched hazel stick. Again, the slow turning and turning. Red, she said, with certainty. Very red. That way. We walked together in the direction she indicated, across a meadow and into a clump of trees. There, I said, fascinated. The corpse of a very small animal, a vole by the look of it, lay on a clump of green moss. It had no head, and bright blood stained its fur and beaded on the moss. It was very red. Now, from here on, said Letty, hold on to my arm, don't let go. Put on my right hand, and took her left arm, just below the elbow. She moved the hazel wand. This way, she said. What are we looking for now? We're getting closer, she said. The next thing we're looking for is a storm. We pushed our way into a clump of trees, and through the clump of trees into a wood, and squeezed our way through the trees too close together, their foliage a thick canopy above our heads. We found a clearing in the wood, and walked along the clearing in a world made green. From our left came a mumble of distant thunder. Storm, sang Letty. She let her body swing again, and I turned with her, holding her arm. I felt, or imagined I felt, a throbbing going through me, holding her arm, as if I were touching mighty engines. She set off in a new direction. We crossed the tiny stream together. Then she stopped suddenly and stumbled but did not fall. Are we there? I asked. Not there, she said. No, it knows we're coming. It feels us, and it does not want us to come to it. The hazel wand was whipping around, how like a magnet being pushed at a repelling pole. Letty grinned. A gust of wind threw leaves and dirt up into our faces. In the distance, I could hear something rumble, like a train. It was getting harder to see, and the sky that I could make out above the canopy of leaves was dark, as if huge storm clouds had moved above our heads, or as if it had gone from morning directly to twilight. Letty shouted, "Get down!" And she crouched on the moss, pulling me down with her. She lay prone, and I lay beside her, feeling a little silly. The ground was damp. How long will we... Shush! She sounded almost angry. I said nothing. Something came through the woods, above our heads. I glanced up, saw something brown and furry, but flat, like a huge rug, flapping around and curling at the edges, and at the front of the rug, a mouth filled with dozens of tiny, sharp teeth facing down. It flapped and floated above us. Then it was gone. What was that? I asked, my heart pounding so hard in my chest that I did not know if I would be able to stand again. Manta wolf, Letty said. We've already gone a bit further out than I thought. She got her feet and stared she got to her feet and stared the way the furry thing had gone. She raised the tip of the hazel wand and turned around slowly. I'm not getting anything. She tossed her head to get the hair out of her eyes without letting go of the forks of the hazel wand. Hey, sir, how's it going? Either it's hiding or we're too close. She bit her lip. Then she said, the shilling, the one from your throat, bring it out. Thank you for the lurk. I took it from my pocket with my left hand, offered it to her. No, she said, I can't touch it, not right now. Put it down on the fork of the stick. I didn't ask why. I just put the silver shilling down at the intersection of the Y. Letty stretched her arms out and turned very slowly, with the end of the stick pointing straight out. I moved with her, but felt nothing. No throbbing engines. We were only halfway around when she stopped and said, Look! I looked in the direction she was facing, but I saw nothing but trees and shadows in the wood. No, look! There! She indicated with her head. The tip of the hazel wand had begun smoking, softly. She turned a little to the left, a little to the right, a little further to the right again, and the tip of the wand began to glow a bright orange. That's something I've not seen before, said Letty. I'm using the coin as an amplifier, but it's as if there was a whoomp, and then the end of the stick burst into flame. Letty pushed it down into damp moss. She said, take your coin back. And I did, picking it up carefully in case it was hot, but it was icy cold. She left the hazel wand behind on the moss. The charcoal tip is still smoking irritably. Letty walked, and I walked beside her. We held hands now, my right hand in her left. The air smelled strange, like fireworks, and the world grew darker with every step we took into the forest. I said, I'd keep you safe, didn't I? Said Letty. Yes. I promised I wouldn't let anything hurt you. Yes. She said, just keep holding my hand. Don't let go. Whatever happens, don't let go. Her hand was warm, but not sweaty. It was reassuring. Hold my hand, she repeated. And don't do anything unless I tell you. You got that? I said, I don't feel very safe. She did not argue. She said, we've gone further than I imagined, further than I expected. I'm not really sure what kind of things live out here in the margins. The trees ended and we walked out into open country. I said, are we a long way from your farm? No, we're still on the borders of the farm. Hemstock Farm stretches a very long way. We brought a lot of this. We brought a lot of this with us from the old country when we came here. The farm came with us and brought things with it when it came. Gran calls them fleas. I did not know where we were, but I could not believe we were still on the Hemstock's land. No more than I believed we were in the world I had grown up in. The sky of this place was the dull orange of a warning light, The plants, which were spiky like huge ragged aloes, were a dark silvery green and looked as if they had been beaten from gunmetal. The coin in my left hand had warmed to the heat of my body, began to cool down again until it was cold as an ice cube. My right hand held Letty Hemstock's hand as tightly as it could. She said, "We're here." I thought I was looking at a building at first, that it was some kind of tent, as high as a country church, made of gray and pink canvas that flapped from the gust of storm wind. In that orange sky, a lopsided canvas structure aged by weather and ripped by time. And then it turned and I saw its face. And I heard something make a whimpering sound, like a dog that had been kicked, until I realized that the thing that was whimpering was me. Its face was ragged and its eyes were deep holes in the fabric. There was nothing behind it, just a gray canvas mask, huger than I could have imagined, all ripped and torn, blowing into the gusts of storm wind. Something shifted, and the ragged thing looked down at us. Little Hemstock said, "Name yourself." There was a pause. Empty eyes stared down. Then a voice as featureless as the wind said, "I am the lady of this place. I have been here for such a long time, since before the little people sacrificed each other on the rocks. My name is my own, child, not yours. Now leave me be before I blow you all away." It gestured with a limb like a broken mainsail, and I felt myself shivering. Lady Hemstock squeezed my hand, and I felt braver. Thank you for the hydrate, Yuki. This is a good book. I'm really liking this. How's everybody doing though? How's everybody in chat doing? I hope you're all enjoying this. Good, I'm enjoying the book as well. I'm glad to hear. I hope I'm doing a decent enough job with the reading. This is all like still just new to me. Doing great, thanks. I'm trying. She said, "Asked you to name yourself." I did. I and heard more an empty boast of age and time. Now you tell me your name and I am asking a third time. She sounded more like a country girl than she ever had before. Perhaps it was the anger in her voice. Her words came out differently when she was angry. "No," whispered the gray thing flatly. Little girl, who's your friend?" Letty whispered, "Don't say anything." I nodded and pressed my lips tightly together. I am growing tired of this," said the gray thing with a petulant shake of its ragged cloth arms. Something came to me and pleaded for love and help. It told me how I could make all the things I get happy, that there are simple creatures, and all any of them want is money, just money and nothing more. Little tokens of work. If it had asked, I would have given them wisdom or peace, perfect peace. "None of that," said Letty Hemstock. "You've got nothing to give them they want. Let them be." The wind gusted and the gargantuan figure flapped with it like huge sails swinging. And when the wind was done, the creature had changed position. Now it seemed to have crouched lower to the ground, and it was examining us like an enormous canvas scientist looking at the two white mice. Two very scared white mice holding hands. Letty's hand was sweating now. She squeezed my hand, whether to reassure me or herself, I did not know, and I squeezed back. The ripped face, the place where the face should have been, twisted. I thought it was smiling. Perhaps it was smiling. I felt as if it was examining me, taking me apart, as if it knew everything about me, things I did not even know about myself. The girl holding my hand said, "If you're telling me your name, I'll bind you as a nameless thing, and you'll still be bound and tied and sealed like a palter or a shuck." She waited, but the thing said nothing, and Letty Hemstock began to say words in a language I did not know. Sometimes she was talking, and sometimes it was more like singing in a tongue that was nothing I had ever heard, or ever would encounter later in life. I knew the tune, though. It was a child's song. The tune to which we sang the nursery rhyme, "Girls and boys come out to play." That was the tune, but her words were older words. I was certain of that. And as she sang, things happened beneath the orange sky. The earth writhed and churned with worms, long gray worms that pushed up from the ground beneath our feet. Something came hurtling at us with the center of mass of flapping canvas. It was a little bigger than a football. At school, during games, mostly I dropped things I was meant to catch or closed my hand on them a moment too late, letting them hit me in the face or in the stomach. But this thing was coming straight at me and Letty Hemstock, and I didn't think, I only did. I put both my hands out and I caught the thing, a flapping, writhing mass of cobwebs and rotting cloth. And as I caught it in my hands, I felt something hurt me, a stabbing pain in the sole of my foot, momentary and then gone, as if I had trodden upon a pin. As if I had trodden upon a pin. Letty knocked the thing I was holding out of my hands, and it fell to the ground where it collapsed into itself. She grabbed my right hand, held it firmly once more, and through all this, she continued to sing. "Hey Static, how's it going?" I have dreamed of that song, of the strange words to that simple rhyme song, and on several occasions I have understood what she was saying in my dreams. In those dreams, I spoke that language too, the first language, and I had dominion over the nature of all that was real. In my dream, it was the tongue of what is, and anything spoken in it becomes real, because nothing said in that language can be a lie. It is the most basic building brick of everything. In my dreams, I have used that language to heal the sick and to fly. Once I dreamed I kept a perfect little bed and breakfast by the seaside, and to everyone who came to stay with me, I would say in that tongue, "Be whole," and they would become whole, not be broken people, not any longer, because I had spoken the language of shaping. And because the lady was speaking the language of shaping, even if I did not understand what she was saying, I understood what was being said. The thing in the clearing was being bound to that place for always, trapped, forbidden to exercise its influence on anything beyond its own domain. Letty Hemstock finished singing. In my mind, I thought I could hear the creature screaming, protesting, railing, but the place beneath the orange sky was quiet. Only the flapping of canvas and a rattle of twigs in the wind breaking the silence. The wind died down. 1,000 pieces of torn gray cloth settled on the black earth like dead things. Or like so much abandoned laundry. Nothing moved. Letty said, "That should hold it." She squeezed my hand. I thought she was trying to sound bright, but she didn't. She sounded grim. "Let's take you home." We walked hand in hand through a wood of blue-tinged evergreens, and we crossed a lacquered red and yellow bridge over an ornamental pond. We walked along the edge of a field in which young corn was coming up. Like green grass planted in rows, we climbed a wooden stile, hand in hand, and reached another field, planted with what looked like small reeds of furry snakes, black and white and brown and orange and gray and striped, all of them waving gently, curling and uncurling in the sun. "What are they?" I asked. "You can pull one up and see, if you like," said Lottie. I looked down. The furry tendril by my feet was perfectly black. I bent, grasped it at its base, firmly with my left hand, and I pulled. Something came up from the earth and swung around angrily. My hand felt like a dozen tiny needles had been sunk into it. I brushed the earth from it and apologized. And it stared at me, with more with surprise and puzzlement than with anger. It jumped from my hand to my shirt. I stroked it. A kitten, black and sleek, with a pointed, inquisitive face, a white spot over one ear, and the eyes of a peculiarly vivid green blue. "At the farm, we get our cats the normal way," said Letty. What's that?" "Big Oliver. He turned up at the farm back in the pagan times. All our farm cats trace back to him." I looked at the kitten hanging on my shirt with tiny claws. "Can I take it home?" I asked. "It's not an it, it's a she." "Not a good idea, taking anything home from these parts," said Letty. I put the kitten down at the edge of the field. She darted off after a butterfly, which floated up and out of reach, then scampered away without a look back. "My kitten was run over," I told Lottie. "It was only little. The man who died told me about it. Although he wasn't driving, he said they didn't see it." "I'm sorry," said Letty. We were walking beneath a canopy of apple blossom then, and the world smelled like honey. That's the trouble with living things. Don't last very long. Kittens one day, old cats the next. And then just memories. And the memories fade and blend and smudge together. She opened a 5-bar gate and we went through it. She let go of my hand. We were at the bottom of the lane, near the wooden shelf by the road with the battered silver milk churns on it. The world smelled normal. I said, "We're really back now?" "Yes," said Lady Hempstock. "And we won't be seeing any more trouble from her." She paused. "Big, wasn't she? And nasty. I've not seen one like that before. If I'd known she was going to be so old and so big and so nasty, I would have left you behind." I was glad that she had taken me with her. Then she said, "I wish you hadn't let go of my hand. But still, you're all right, aren't you? Nothing went wrong, no damage done." I said, "I'm fine, not to worry. I'm a brave soldier." That was what my grandfather always said. And then I said, "No damage done." She smiled at me, a bright, relieved smile, and I hoped I had said the right thing. That's the end of chapter 4. Damn, that's already we're close to halfway through the book already. Seems like a bit of a shorter book because of all the illustrations they're in. It's so good. I love it. I want to say again, shout outs to the developers of Other Tales Interactive. I gotten the opportunity to get this book through them as a raffle gift. It is one of their favorite books. And they're great developers. The game they've made that I've played was absolutely fantastic. It's a very small puzzle game, nice little co-op puzzle game, but very, very fun. And a new game for them is coming out very soon, called Miniatures. But yeah, thanks again to those lovely two devs giving me this book. I'm enjoying this. All right, Chapter 5. That evening, my sister sat on her bed, brushing her hair over and over. She brushed it 100 times every night and counted each brush stroke. I did not know why. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Looking at my foot," I told her. I was staring at the sole of my right foot. There was a pink line across the center of the sole, from the ball of the foot almost to the heel, where I had stepped on a broken glass as a toddler. I remember waking up in my cot the morning after it happened, looking at the black stitches that held the edges of the cut together. It was my earliest memory. I was used to the pink scar. The little hole beside it, in the arch of my foot, was new. It was there. It was where the sudden sharp pain had been. Although it did not hurt, it was just a hole. I probbed it with my forefinger, and it seemed to me that something inside the hole retreated. Ugh, okay. My sister had stopped brushing her hair and was watching me curiously. I got up, walked out of the bedroom, down the corridor to the bathroom at the end of the hall. I do not know why I did not ask an adult about it. I do not remember asking adults about anything except as a last resort. There was the year I dug out a wart from my knees with a penknife, discovering how deeply I could cut before it hurt, and what the roots of a wart looked like. In the bathroom cupboard behind the mirror was a pair of stainless steel tweezers, the kind with pointed sharp tips for pulling out wooden splinters, and a box of sticking plasters. I sat on the metal side of the white bathtub and examined the hole in my foot. It was a simple, small, round hole, smooth-edged. I could not see how deeply it went, because something was in the way. Something was blocking it. Something that seemed to retreat as the light touched it. I held the tweezers and I watched. Nothing happened. Nothing changed. I put the forefinger on my left hand over the hole, gently blocking the light. And then I put the tip of the tweezers beside the hole, and I waited. I counted to 100, inspired perhaps by my sister's hair brushing. Then I pulled my finger away and stabbed in with the tweezers. I caught the head of the worm, as if that was what it was, by the tip between the metal prongs, and I squeezed it and I pulled. Have you ever tried to pull a worm out from a hole? You know how hard they can hold on? The way they use their whole bodies to grip the sides of the hole? I pulled perhaps an inch of this worm, pink and gray, streaked like something infected, out of the hole in my foot, and then felt it stop. I could feel it inside my flesh, making itself rigid, unpullable. I was not scared by this. It was obviously just something that happened to people, like when the neighbor's cat Misty had worms. I had a worm in my foot and I was removing the worm. I twisted the tweezers. Wait, there you go. It's a bit too loud. There we go. I twisted tweezers thinking, oh no wait, let me see, worms out, worm my foot, okay. I twisted the tweezers thinking, I suspect, of spaghetti on a fork, winding the worm around the tweezers. I tried to pull back, but I turned it, a little at a time, until I could definitely pull no further. I could feel inside me the sticky plastic way that it tried to hold on, like a strip of pure muscle. I leaned over, as far as I could, reached out my left hand, and turned on the bat's hot tab. The one with the red dot in the center, and let it run. The water ran for 3-4 minutes out of the tap and down into the plug hole before it began to steam. When the water was steaming, I extended my foot and my right arm, maintaining pressure on the tweezers and on the inch of the creature that I had wound out of my body. Then I put the place where the tweezers were under the... Would you rather sleep in a bed full of mysterious yellow water, or fight 10,000 mosquitoes naked? Oh god, XPS, first of all, thank you for the bit. I don't know. Can I smell the liquid? Like, can I maybe deduct what liquid it is by smelling it? Where was I? Yeah. I would probably still fight the mosquitoes, because I would not be comfortable sleeping in a damp, like, even just like wet bat bed. Okay, then I put the place where the tweezers were under the hot tap. The water splashed my foot, but my soles were barefoot hardened, and I scarcely minded. The water that touched my fingers scalded them, but I was prepared for the heat. The worm wasn't. I felt it flex inside me, trying to pull back from the scalding water. Felt it loosen its grip on the inside of my foot. I turned the tweezers. Frogs wanting a free meal. The worm wasn't. I felt it loosen its grip inside of my foot. I turned the tweezers triumphantly, like picking the best scab in the world, as the creature began to come out of me, putting up less and less resistance. What am I reading? The name of the book is in the top right. It's called The Ocean at the End of the Lane. We are at chapter 5 right now, and it's getting a bit weird right now, but it's a very good book so far. I'm really enjoying it. I pulled at it steadily, and it went under the hot water. It slackened. As it went under hot water, it slackened until it was almost all out of me. But I was too confident, too triumphant and impatient, and it tugged too quickly and too hard, and the worm came off in my hand. The end of it that came out of me was oozing and broken as if it had snapped in half. I never in my life willingly read a book. I sometimes do. Usually I read books like when I was in a on like a bit longer travel. Usually when I had like go to school or to work or to uni, I had like a good like half-hour train ride or something like that, and I would just like bring like a small like novel and just read it on the way while I was waiting for the train or sitting in the train waiting for my stop. But I haven't really been reading much lately, like the past couple years. And I've gotten this book like 2 years ago as a present, as like a raffle gift, and I've not read it yet at all. I do not know anything about it. And I mean, I have a lot of people in my chat that always told me they wanted me to read them a story. They liked my voice and all that. So on my last birthday stream, which was in December, we had a goal set for I think 40 subs that I will do a stream where I just read a book. And as you maybe can tell, considering we are doing this stream now, that goal was reached. And we are reading this book. The end of it came out. The end of it came out of me. It was oozing and broken as if it snapped off. Still, if the creature had left anything in my foot, it was tiny. I examined the worm. It was dark gray and light gray, streaked with pink and segmented, like a normal earthworm. Now it was out of the hot water. It seemed to be recovering. The body that had been wrapped around the tweezers now dangled, writhing, hanging from the head. Was it its head? How could I tell? Where I had pinched it. I did not want to kill it. I did not kill animals. Not if I could help it. Not if I could help it. But I had to get rid of it. It was dangerous. I had no doubt of that. I held the worm above the bat's plug hole, where it wriggled under the scalding water. Then I let it go, and watched it vanish down the drain. I let the water run for a while, and I washed off the tweezers. Then I put a small sticking plaster over the hole in the sole of my foot, and put the plug in the bath, to prevent the worm from climbing back of the open of the open plug hole before I turned off the tap. I did not know if it was dead. I did not think you came back from the drain. I put the tweezers back where I got them from, behind the bathroom mirror. Then I closed the mirror and stared at myself. I wondered, as I wondered so often when I was at that age, who I was. And what exactly was looking at the face in the mirror. If the face I was looking at wasn't me. And I knew it wasn't, because I would still be me, whatever happened to my face. Then what was me? And what was watching? I went back to the bedroom. It was my night to have the door to the hallway open, and I waited until my sister was asleep. And wouldn't tell on me. And then, in the dim light from the hall, I read a Secret 7 mystery until I fell asleep. Okay, that was a short chapter. That was all of chapter 5. Chapter 6. An admission about myself. As a very small boy, perhaps 3 or 4 years old, I could be a monster. You were a little momser, several aunts told me. On different occasions, once I had safely reached adulthood and my dreadful infant deeds could be recalled with wry amusement. But I do not actually remember being a monster. I just remember wanting my own way. Small children believe themselves to be gods, or some of them do. And they can only be satisfied when the rest of the world goes along with their way of seeing things. But I was no longer a small boy. I was 7. I had been fearless, but now I was such a frightened child. The incident of the worm in my foot did not scare me. I did not talk about it. I wondered, though, the next day, whether people often got footworms, or whether it was something that had only ever happened to me. In the orange-white sky place on the edge of the Hemstocks farm. I peeled off the plaster on the sole of my foot when I awoke, and was relieved to see that the hole had begun to close up. There was a pink place where it had been, like a blood blister, but nothing more. I went down to breakfast. My mother looked happy. She said, "Good news, darling. I've got a job. They need an optometrist at Dixon's Opticians, and they want me to start this afternoon. I'll be working 4 days a week." I did not mind. I would be fine on my own. "And I've got more news. We have someone coming to look after you children while I'm away. Her name is Ursula. She'll be sleeping in your old bedroom, at the top of the stairs. She'll be a sort of housekeeper. She'll make sure your children are fed, and she'll clean the house. Mrs. Wallery is having trouble with her hip, and she says it will be a few weeks before she can come back. It'll be such a load off my mind to have someone there, if Daddy and I are both working." You don't have the money, I said. You said you didn't have any money. That's why I'm taking the optometrist job, she said. And Ursula's looking after you for room and board. She needs to live locally for a few months. She phoned this morning. Her references are excellent. I hoped that she would be nice. The previous housekeeper, Gertruda, 6 months earlier had not been nice. She had enjoyed playing practical jokes on my sister and me of the apple pie bed variety, which left us baffled. Eventually, we had marched outside the house with placards saying, "We hate Gertruda," and "We do not like Gertruda's cooking," and put tiny frogs in her bed, and she had gone back to Sweden. Damn! Nasty little children. I want a book. I took a book and went into the garden. It was a warm spring day and sunny, and I climbed up a rope ladder to the lowest branch of the big beech tree, sat on it, sat on it and read my book. I was not scared of anything when I read my book. I was far away, in ancient Egypt, learning about Hathor, and now she had stalked Egypt in the form of a lioness and killed so many people that the sands of Egypt turned red. Now they had only defeated her by mixing beer and honey and sleeping draughts and dyeing this concoction red, so she thought it was blood, and she drank it and fell asleep. Ra, the father of the gods, made her the goddess of love after that. So the wounds she had inflicted on people would now only be wounds of the heart. I wondered why the gods had done that. Why they hadn't just killed her when they had the chance. I like myths. They weren't adult stories, but they weren't children's stories. They were better than that. They just were. Ooh. The next 2 pages is just like a big 2-page illustration of him sitting in the tree reading. Really, really cool. I'm so sad I cannot show you guys because it's a really like ink illustration. It's really pretty. Adult stories never made sense, and they were so slow to start. They made me feel like they were secrets, Masonic, mythic secrets to adulthood. Why didn't adults want to read about Narnia, about secret islands and smugglers and dangerous fairies? I was getting hungry. I clamped down from my tree, went to the back of the house, past the laundry room that smelled of laundry soap and mildew, past the little coal and woodshed, past the outside toilet where the spiders hung and waited, wooden doors painted garden green, in through the back door, along the hallway, and into the kitchen. My mother was in there with a woman I had never seen before. When I saw her, my heart hurt. I mean that literally, not metaphorically. There was a mandatory twinge in my chest, just a flash, and then it was gone. My sister was sitting at a kitchen table, eating a bowl of cereal. The woman was very pretty. She had shortish, honey blonde hair, huge gray-blue eyes, and pale lipstick. She seemed tall, even for an adult. "Darling, this is Ursula Monckton," said my mother. I said nothing. I just stared at her. My mother nudged me. "Hello," I said. "He's shy," said Ursula Monckton. "I'm certain that once he warms up to me, we shall be great friends." She reached out a hand and patted my sister's mousy brown hair. My sister smiled a gap-toothed smile. "I like you so much," my sister said. Then she said to our mother and me, "When I grow up, I want to be like Ursula Monckton." My mother and Ursula laughed. "You little dear," said Ursula Monckton. Then she turned to me. "What about us, huh? Are we friends as well?" I just looked at her, all grown up and blonde in her gray and pink dress, and I was scared. Her dress wasn't ragged. It was just the fashion of the thing, I suppose. The kind of dress that it was. But when I looked at her, I imagined her dress flapping in that windless kitchen, flapping like the mainsail of a ship, on a lonely ocean under an orange sky. I don't know what I said in reply, or if I even said anything, but I went out out of that kitchen, although I was hungry without even an apple. I took my book into the back garden beneath the balcony by the flower bed under the television room window, and I read, forgetting my hunger in Egypt with animal-headed gods who cut each other up and restored one another to life. My sister came out into the garden. I like her so much, she told me. She's my friend. Do you want to see what she gave me? She produced a small gray purse, the kind my mother kept in her handbag for her coins, that fastened with a metal butterfly clip. It looked like it was made of leather. I wondered if it was mouse skin. She opened the purse, put her fingers into the opening, came out with a large silver coin, half a crown. Look, she said, look what I got. I wanted half a crown. No, I wanted that I could buy with half a crown. Magic tricks and plastic joke toys and books and so many things. But I did not want a little gray purse with half a crown in it. I don't like her, I told my sister. That's only because I saw her first, said my sister. She's my friend. I did not think that Ursula Monkton was anybody's friend. I wanted to go and warn Letty Hempstock about her. But what could I say? The new housekeeper nanny wore gray and pink, that she looked at me oddly. I wish I had never let go of Letty's hand. Ursula Monkton was my fault. I was certain of it. Thank you for the 3 bits, Yuki. I appreciate it. Bam, taking over #1 spot. Rude. I appreciate it though. Thank you. I would not be able to get rid of her by flushing her down a plug hole or putting frogs in her bed. I should have left at that moment. Should have run away, fled down the lane fled down the lane, the mile or so to the Hempstocks. Gotta get beat her by 1 bit. Yeah, you did. For now. Fled down to the lane, the mile or so to the Hempstocks farm, but I didn't. And then a taxi took my mother away to Dixon's Opticians, where she would show people letters through lenses and dispense things to help them see more clearly. And I was left there with Ursula Monkton. She came out into the garden with a plate of sandwiches. I've spoken to your mother, she said, a sweet smile beneath the pale lipstick. And while I'm here, you children need to limit your travels. You can be anywhere in the house or in the garden, or I will walk with you to your friends. Wow, Yuki, you're saying I never get another bit? Okay. But you may not leave the property and simply go wandering. Of course, said my sister. I did not say anything. My sister ate a peanut butter sandwich. I was starving. I wondered whether the sandwiches were dangerous or not. I did not know. I was scared that I would eat one and it would turn into worms in my stomach. It means war. Oh no. Please, no bit war. And they would wriggle through me, colonizing my body until they forced their way out of my skin. I went back into the house. I pushed the kitchen door open. Ursula Monkton was not there. I filled my pockets with fruit, with apples and oranges and heart brown pears. Damn, Yuki throwing out a declaration of war. Anybody want to take her on? I took 3 bananas and stuffed them down my jumper and fled to my laboratory. My laboratory, that's what I called it, was a green painted shed as far away from the house as you could get, built up against the side of the house's huge old garage. A fig tree grew beside the shed, although we had never tasted ripe fruit from the tree, only seen the huge leaves and the green fruits. I called it my laboratory because I kept my chemistry set in there. the chemistry set, a perennial birthday present, had been banished from the house by my father after I had made something in a test tube. I had randomly mixed things together and then heated them until they had erupted and turned black with an ammoniac stench that refused to fade. Well, we'll see if it happens at any point, Yuki. Maybe somebody else will put up the fight. Maybe it's not XBS. Somebody else could come in. Who knows? My father said that he did not mind me doing experiments, although neither of us knew what I could possibly have been experimenting on. Ahana. That did not matter. My mother had been given chemistry sets for her. My mother had been given chemistry sets to her birthday, and see how well that had turned out. But he did not want them within smelling range of the house. I'll beat their cheeks. I would like to see that. I ate a banana and a pear, then hid the rest of the fruit beneath the wooden table. Adults follow paths. Children explore. Adults are content to walk the same way, hundreds of times, or thousands. Perhaps it never occurs to adults to step off the paths, to creep beneath rhododendrons, to find the spaces between fences. I was a child, and I knew a dozen different ways of getting out of our property and into the lane. Ways that would not involve walking down our drive. I decided that I would creep out of the laboratory shed, along the wall to the edge of the lawn. Yo, Nuggy, thank you for the 4 bits. The lawn, and then into the border of the azaleas and bay laurels that bordered the garden there. From the laurels, I would slip down the hill and over the rusting metal fence that bordered the lane. Guys. 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 Oh my god. Yuki, that was not enough. Nuggy still has you beat. I appreciate all those bits though. Thank you very much, but damn. Oh my god, guys. Nuggy! What the fuck? Come on! Help! Somebody help me! I'm getting thrown. I'm getting bits thrown at me. Help! Guys! Now you guys are tied. Oh my god. No! You know what that means? You gotta buy more. Unless you want Yuki to win. Fuck it. Oh god, Yuki. I'm scared. What are you gonna do? What is going on? I like how the alerts are still like slowly but surely coming in. Yuki, what the fuck? Thank you for the 1,050 bits. Oh my god. Thank you. Well, who's now gonna try and take Yuki's spot, huh? Anybody wanna attempt it? Anyone wanna attempt to beat it? Or is Yuki gonna be the winner here? Thank you so much. You guys are something else. I appreciate it though. I love you all. Fucking hell. All I'm doing is reading a book, guys. Cholyo means war. You did. Guys, like, all I'm doing is literally just sitting here reading a book. You don't have to throw that much money at me for that. Oh my god. Like, come on. I'm not doing anything special here. So much to save for a laptop. You'll get it together at some point. But damn, I really appreciate it though. Thank you so much. What went on with you guys? Oh my god. Holy shit. Can I just go back now to reading and not get interrupted by alerts and bits thrown at me all the time? No. Okay. Well, I will do anyway. Can't tell me what to do. I didn't do anything. Lucky, I didn't do anything. We got Yuki. Don't do anything crazy now. Can I just go read now? Huh. I wonder who this anonymous gifter has been, but thank you so much for the gifted sub to Loaf. I appreciate it. Okay, can I now go back to reading my book for you all? I would slip down the hill and over the rusting metal fence that bordered the lane. Gifting gave you an ad? That's wild. Well, maybe if you were subbed as well, you wouldn't get an ad. Just saying. How it's nobody was looking. I ran and I crept and got through the laurels, and I went down the hill, pushing through the brambles and the nettle patches that had sprung up since the last time I went that way. Ursula Monkton was waiting for me at the bottom of the hill, just in front of the rusting metal fence. There was no way she could have got there without me seeing her, but she was there. She folded her arms and looked at me, and her gray and pink dress flapped in a gust of wind. I believe I said that you were not to leave the property. Started a hype train? Oh my god, guys. Why is there a hype train? What the fuck? I believe I said you were not to leave the property. Closed or not yet? Oh yeah, it's closed. Okay, well then. Gotta get somebody else to do it, I guess. I believe I said that you were not to leave the property. I'm not, I told her, with a cockiness I knew I did not feel, not even a little. I'm still on the property, I'm just exploring. You're sneaking around, she said. I said nothing. I think you should be in your bedroom, where I can keep an eye on you. It's time for your nap. Oh my god. Oh, well, hype train is over. Never mind. Again, though, thank you so much for all of the stuff, the bits, the gifted. I really appreciate it. It's not necessary at all. Oh my god. Wait, I see a for Yuki. Did you just sub as well? Oh my god. Why do I see your first badge all of a sudden, huh? What did you do? Guys! Stop! What the fuck? All I'm doing is reading a fucking book! Stop throwing money at me! Fucking hell. I was too old for naps, but I knew that I was too young to argue, or to win the argument if I did. Okay, I said. Don't say okay, she said. Say, yes, Miss Monkton. Or, ma'am. Say, yes, ma'am. She looked down at me with her blue-gray eyes, which put me in mind of holes rotted in canvas and which did not look pretty at that moment. God, I cannot read right now. Guys, you just completely broke my reading flow. Or your fault. I said, yes, ma'am, and hated myself for saying it. We walked together up the hill. I mean, we have other people in the chat as well. They could they could do it. But obviously I'm not like forcing anybody to throw money at me. I just appreciate you guys being here, listening to me read you guys a story. I did not expect it to get anything out of this. I'm just here reading. Like, come on, guys. We almost started a fucking hype train of me just reading a fucking book. How did that happen? I don't think that how it works, Yuki. I don't think I could do that. Sadly. Maybe next time. Who knows? I might do these reading streams more often. Oh, the hype train. I know. I wish there was a hype. It would have gone to a hype train as well. But god damn it, guys. Just in general, like, why are you throwing money at me like that? What did I do? What the hell did I do to deserve that? All I've been doing the last like 2 hours, almost 3 hours at this point, is just sit here and read. Not even like anything I did myself or anything, just like a random book I got. I'm just sitting here reading it. Like, what the fuck, guys? You guys are crazy. We walked together up the hill. Your parents can no longer afford this place, said Ursula Monkton, and they can't afford to keep it up. Soon enough, they'll see that the way to solve their financial problems is to sell this house and its gardens to property developers. Then all of this, and this was the tangle of brambles, the unkempt world behind the lawn, will become a dozen identical houses and gardens. If you are lucky, you'll get to live in one. And if not, you'll just envy the people who do. Will you like that? I'm broke now. You didn't have to spend any money in the first place, Yuki. God damn it. What do I do with you guys? You guys are crazy. Way too crazy. Get spoiled, bitch. I don't deserve it, though. I don't do anything. I love the house and the garden. I love the rambling shabbiness of it. I love that place as if it were a part of me. And perhaps in some ways it was. Who are you? I asked. Ursula Monkton. I'm your housekeeper. I said. She said. I said, who are you really? Why are you giving people money? Everybody wants money, she said, as if it were self-evident. It makes them happy. It will make you happy. If you let it. If you let it. We had come out of the heap of grass clippings behind the circle of green grass that was called the fairy ring. Sometimes, when the weather was wet, it filled with vivid yellow toadstools. Now, she said, go to your room. I ran from her, ran as fast as I could, across the fairy ring, up the lawn, past the rose bushes, past the coal shed, and into the house. Ursula Monkton was standing just inside the back door of the house to welcome me in. Although she could not have get past me, I would have seen. Her hair was perfect, and her lipstick seemed freshly applied. I've been inside you, she said. So, a word to the wise. If you tell anybody anything, they won't believe you. And because I've been inside you, I'll know. And I can make it so you never say anything I don't want you to say to anybody. Not ever again. Well, it's not a game though, Yuki, so technically I don't have to stop. What else should I do then though, huh? So I just sit here in silence? You're a game? Wow. Okay. Damn. Should I just sit here in silence now or what? I was doing some other things real quick. I was checking out some other things as well, though. But well, you said I should not stop. I should not continue reading, huh? All right. I love that new emote from you, though, Lily. It's really cute. It was a mistake. Well, now you learn from your mistake. I went upstairs to the bedroom, and I lay on my bed, the place on the sole of my foot where the worm had been throbbed and ached, and now my chest hurts too. I went away in my head into a book. That was where I went whenever real life was too hard or too inflexible. I pulled down a handful of my mother's old books. Old books from where she was a girl. And I read about schoolgirls having adventures in the 1930s and 1940s. Your keyboard bugging out? Sounds like a you problem. Mostly, they were up against smugglers or spies of fifth columnists. Whatever they were. And the girls were always brave, and they always knew exactly what to do. I was not brave, and I had no idea what to do. I had never felt so alone. I wondered if the Hemstocks were on the telephone. It seemed unlikely, but not impossible. Perhaps it had been Mrs. Hemstock who had reported the abandoned Minnie to the police in the first place. Hey, who you bonking here with the fish, huh? The phone was downstairs, but I knew the number to call the directory inquiries. And I had to ask for somebody named Hemstock living at Hemstock Farm. There was a phone in my parents' bedroom. I got off the bed, went to the doorway, and looked out. The upstairs hallway was empty. As quickly, as quietly as I could, I walked into the bedroom next to mine. The walls were pale pink. My parents' bed covered with a bedsheet covered in its turn with huge printed roses. There were French windows to the balcony that ran along that side of the house. There was a cream-colored telephone on the cream and gilt nightstand beside the bed. I picked it up. I heard the dull whirring noise of the dial tone and dialed directory inquiries, my finger pulling the holds in the dial down, a 1, a 9, a 2. I waited for the operator to come on the line and tell me the number of the Hemstocks farm. I had a pencil with me, and I was ready to write the telephone number down in the back of a blue cloth-bound book called Pansy Saves the School. The operator did not come on. The dialing tone continued, and over it, Ursula Monkton's voice saying, "Properly brought up young people would not think about sneaking off to use the telephone, would they?" I did not say anything, although I have no doubt she could hear me breathing. I put the handset down on the cradle and went back into my room, to the bedroom I shared with my sister. I sat on my bed and stared out of the window. My bed was pushed hard against the wall just below the window. I loved to sleep with the window open. Rainy nights were the best of all. I would open the window and put my head on my pillow and close my eyes and feel the wind on my face and listen to the trees sway and creak. There would be raindrops blown onto my face too, if I was lucky. And I would imagine that I was in my boat on the ocean and that it was swaying with the swell of the sea. I did not imagine that I was a pirate or that I was going anywhere. I was just on my boat. But now it was not raining. It was not night. All I could see through the window were trees and clouds and the distant purple of the horizon. I had emergency chocolate supplies hidden beneath a large plastic Batman figurine I had acquired on my birthday, and I ate them. And as I ate them, I thought of letting go of Lady Hemstock's hand to grab the ball of rotting cloth, remembered the stabbing pain in my foot that had followed. I brought her here, I thought, and I knew that it was true. Ursula Monkton wasn't real. She was a cardboard mask for the thing that had traveled inside me as a worm, that had flapped and gusted in the open country under that orange sky. I went back to reading Pansy Saves the School. The secret plans to the airbase next to the school were being smuggled out to the enemy by spies who were teachers working on the school vegetable allotment. The plants were concealed inside hollowed-out vegetable narrows. "Great heavens," said Inspector Davidson of Scotland Yard's renowned Smugglers and Secret Spies Division, the SSSD. "That is literally the last place we would have looked." "We owe you an apology, Pansy," said the stern headmistress with an uncharacteristically warm smile, and a twinkle in her eyes that made Pansy think perhaps she had misjudged the woman all this term. "You saved the reputation of the school. Now, before you get too full of yourself, aren't there some French verbs you ought to be conjugating for, madame?" I would be happy with Pansy, and I could be happy with Pansy, and some part of my head, even while the rest of my head was filled with fear. I waited for my parents to come home. I would tell them what was happening. I would tell them they would believe me. At that time, my father worked in an office an hour's drive away. I was not certain what he did. He had a very nice, pretty secretary with a toy poodle. And whenever she knew we children would be coming to see him, she would bring the poodle in from home and we would play with it. Sometimes we would pass buildings and my father would say, "That's one of ours." But I did not care about buildings, so I never asked how it was one of ours or even who we were. I lay on my bed reading book after book until Ursula Monkton appeared in the doorway of the room and said, "You can come down now." Oh, sorry guys. My sister was watching television downstairs in the television room. She was watching a program called How, a pop science and how things work show, which opened with the hosts in Native American headdresses saying, "How?" and doing embarrassing war whoops. I wanted to turn over to the BBC, but my sister looked at me triumphantly and said, "Ursula says it can stay on whatever I want to watch, and you aren't allowed to change it." I sat with her for a minute as an old man with a mustache showed all the children of England how to tie fishing flies. I said, "She's not nice." "I like her. She's pretty." My mother arrived home 5 minutes later, called hello from the corridor, then went into the kitchen to see Ursula Monckton. She reappeared. "Dinner will be ready as soon as Daddy gets home. Wash your hands." My sister went upstairs and washed her hands. I said to my mother, "I don't like her. Will you make her go away?" My mother sighed. "It is not going to be Gertruda all over again, dear. Ursula's a very nice girl from a very good family, and she positively adores the two of you." My father came home and dinner was served. A thick vegetable soup, then roast chicken and new potatoes with frozen peas. I left all of the things on the table. I did not eat any of it. "I'm not hungry," I explained. "I'm not one for telling tales out of school," said Ursula Monckton, "but someone had chocolate on his hands and face when he came down from his bedroom." "I wish you wouldn't eat that rubbish," grumbled my father. "It's just processed sugar, and it ruins your appetite and your teeth," said my mother. I was scared they would force me to eat, but they didn't. I sat there hungrily, while Ursula Monckton laughed at all my father's jokes. It seemed to me that he was making special jokes just for her. After dinner, we all watched Mission Impossible. I usually liked Mission Impossible, but this time it made me feel uneasy. So people kept pulling off faces off to reveal new faces beneath. They were wearing rubber masks, and it was always our heroes underneath. But I wondered what would happen if Ursula Monckton pulled off her face. What would be underneath that? We went to bed. It was my sister's night, and the bedroom door was closed. I missed the light in the hall. I lay in bed with the window open, wide awake, listening to the noises an old house makes at the end of a long day, and wished as hard as I could, hoping my wishes could become real. I wished that my parents could send Ursula Monckton away, and that I would go down to the Hemstocks farm and tell Letty what I had done, and she would forgive me and make everything all right. I could not sleep. My sister was already asleep. She seemed able to go to sleep whenever she wanted to, a skill I envied and I did not have. I left my bedroom. I loitered at the top of the stairs, listening to the noise of the television coming from downstairs. Then I crept barefoot silent down the stairs and sat on the third step from the bottom. The door to the television room was half open, and if I went down another step, whoever was watching the television would be able to see me. So I waited there. I could hear the television voices punctuated by staccato bursts of TV laughter. And then, over the television voices, adults talking. Ursula Monckton says, "So, is your wife away every evening?" My father's voice, "No, she's gone this evening to organize tomorrow, but from tomorrow it will be weekly. She's raising money for Africa in the village hall, for drilling wells, and I believe for contraception." "Well," said Ursula, "I already know all about that." She laughed a high, tinkling laugh, which sounded friendly and true and real, and had no flapping rags in it. Then she said, "Little pictures." And a moment later, the door opened the hallway, and Ursula Monckton was looking straight at me. She had redone her makeup, her pale lipstick, and her big eyelashes. "Go to bed," she said. "Now." I want to talk to my dad," I said without hope. She said nothing, just smiled with no warmth in it and no love. And I went back up the stairs and climbed into my bed and lay in the darkened bedroom until I gave up on sleeping. And then sleep enveloped me when I was not expecting it, and I slept without comfort. That was a bit of a longer chapter, actually. I think, though, this seems like a good place to stop, though. We've been going for 3 hours. I did not expect to go that long, but I also feel like my mouth getting a bit dry and losing my voice a little bit. So I think this might be a good spot to end for today. It's a really, really good book, though. I am loving it. I hope you guys are enjoying it just as much. If not more. I don't know. But yeah, I think a good 3 hours. It's a decent time to just do that. So let's see. My eyes. I'm probably... Yeah, we're gonna find somebody to raid, but I think we're gonna be continuing with the book next Thursday, same time. I wanna finish it. I think next time we're finishing it. Because I am absolutely enjoying it. It's a really, really good book. But for now, I need a little break. I need to rest my voice for a bit because I am feeling it. It's getting a bit dry. It's getting a bit raspy. So for now, we shall raid out. Raid. Well, thank you for stopping by and listening to me read a book for 3 hours. Like, I did not expect it to go as well as it did. It was fun. I was a bit nervous at the beginning because I've never done something like this before. But that nervousness went away fairly quick. And I really got into the book. It's such a good book. It's really fun to read. I wish I could also show you guys all the illustrations that are in there because they're so beautiful. But I'm just glad I'm able to like read it out to you guys and that you guys enjoy it just as much as I do. But for now, we are going to rate over to something with a bit more energy. Because even though I had it a bit cozy today, we're going to send you guys over to Karza. Always full of energy, hype guy, playing. I don't actually know what he's playing right now. I just saw that he was live. Let me just check real quick. He is currently playing the finals, as always, it seems. Always really, really cool guy. Absolutely adore this man. Very chill, very cool. Has his own like little improv club with kids he's teaching. Very, very lovely person. So we're gonna say hi to him. And And I'll probably be streaming over the week in general, but I will make an announcement again on Discord. We will be continuing the book next Thursday, same time. So 11 p.m. Central European Summer Time, which is I think 5 p.m. East Coast. Something like that. But until then, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, night, evening, whatever time it is. And I'll see you guys next time. Love you all. Goodbye.